Analysis of thought processes, mind or thought processes. We have two kinds of mind or thought processes. When the presentation of the object is very clear, we call it clear. And when the presentation of the object is obscure, we call it obscure. Clear. If a very clear object enters into our mind door, the thought process begins with past bhavanga, vibrating bhavanga, arresting bhavanga, and then manodvaravajana. What's the function of mind door adverting consciousness? Apprehending. Here, manodvaravajana and vathapana are the same. We use the latter term for 5 sense door thought processes, and the former for mind door thought processes. For 5 sense door thought processes, the function of vathapana is to make decisions. Is the object good or not good? But for mind door thought processes, manodvaravajana apprehends. It observes the object. After mind door apprehending consciousness arises, 7 jhana thought moments arise. Next, tadaramana arises 2 times. After that, how many bhavanga arise until we get to 17 thought moments? 4. Then, that mind door thought process is finished. Mind door means that you don't see, hear, smell, taste, or touch anything. When you just close your eyes, your mind thinks. And the thoughts change from one thing to another. Past bhavanga will change the object. Then vibrating bhavanga and arresting bhavanga take a new object. Manodvaravajana thinks about the object. Then there's jhana. What kind of jhana? If you think about a sensual object and feel happy, lobha mulasitta will arise. If you think about a person or situation and don't like it, dosa mulasitta will arise. If you think about kama and morality and wonder if you're practicing meditation correctly, in that moment, vicikiccha, moha, will arise. Or if you close your eyes and sit in meditation but your mind is wandering all the time, then there is uddhacca. This is moha arising. See? But if you think about your metta, your generosity, your morality, how you help people, about the goodness of your meditation practice, or about any of your other good deeds, beautiful, wholesome consciousness will arise. 27 Las Vegas Sayadaw. When most Buddhist people move to America, they think that they don't need to go to the temple because they don't do anything bad. They say that they just stay at home all the time, so there's no need to go to the temple. But they don't understand mind door thought processes. In other words, they don't know the impact of their thoughts. Moment by moment, how do they think? Generally, they don't understand cause and effect, the teachings of the Buddha, and they don't know how to control their mind. Mostly, their mind is unwholesome consciousness. Lobha, dosa, and moha. Unwholesome consciousness arises 99.99% of the time. We need wise attention. If you think about someone who made you mad, instead of indulging in that unskillful thinking, you can reflect on forgiveness and then concentrate your mind on your primary object of meditation. Then, everything will be fine. In every moment that you do this, beautiful consciousness arises. If you ignore your unskillful thinking, then upekkha will arise. Or, if you're happy with yourself because you have skillfully conquered your mental defilement, there is somanassa, with knowledge. Whether your skillful reaction is prompted or unprompted will depend on the situation. But in any case, one of the 8 kinds of wholesome consciousness will arise. So, we need to train and tame our mind. We need to know about all this, otherwise we'll just get angry. It'll happen all the time. And whenever you think about whatever makes you angry, you'll feel unhappy. This isn't good. This is mind door thought process. How many of these do we have? 5. For clear objects. How many vicikiccha do we have, individually? Manodvaravajana is 1, jhana is 7, and tadaramana is 2. In total, that's 10. How many kinds? Manodvaravajana is 1, jhana is 1, and tadaramana is 1. That's 3 kinds. How many jhana? We have 29 sense-sphere jhana, so it would be 1 of 29. For ordinary people, though, it would be 1 of 20. Either one of the 12 types of unwholesome consciousness, or one of the 8 types of wholesome consciousness. For Arahants and Buddhas, it would be the one type of smile-producing consciousness, or one of the 8 types of functional consciousness. Remember that Arahants and Buddhas have no wholesome or unwholesome consciousness. They have functional consciousness. We're talking about 28 analysis of thought processes, sense-sphere beings here. So one of these 29 javanas will arise, perhaps lobha, perhaps dosa, or perhaps moha. With the second kind of clear object mind-door thought process, past bhavanga arises and disappears twice. Then there is vibrating bhavanga, arresting bhavanga, manodvaravajana, javana 7 times, and then tadaramana 2 times. After the second tadaramana, how many bhavanga arise? 3. That completes 17 thought moments. Then, this thought process is finished and subsides into bhavanga. With the third kind, past bhavanga increases to 3 times. The thought process then proceeds as we just described until the end, where there are just 2 bhavanga. Following the same pattern, the fourth kind has 4 past bhavanga, and then 1 bhavanga at the end to complete 17 thought moments. With the fifth kind, there are 5 past bhavanga, and 17 thought moments are complete after the second tadaramana. The thought process then subsides into bhavanga. So for clear objects, we have these 5 types of mind-door thought processes. They depend on the object. Now we go to obscure objects. Obscure, these objects aren't clear, right? Our mind door is not always clear. Sometimes we think about something that occurred a long time ago. Maybe we don't remember it well. Or perhaps we think about someone's face, but it's just not very clear in our mind. These are examples of obscure objects. If the object is obscure, how many past bhavanga arise and cease? 6. Then there's vibrating bhavanga, arresting bhavanga, manodvaravajana, and 7 javana. That's 16 thought moments. As I said before, tadaramana cannot arise just one time. It doesn't have time to arise twice here, so instead, bhavanga arises. This is the first kind of obscure object thought process. The 17 thought moments are complete, and the thought process is done. With the second kind, past bhavanga arises 7 times. Then there's vibrating bhavanga, arresting bhavanga, manodvaravajana, and 7 javana. That's 17 thought moments. The thought process then subsides into bhavanga. 29 Las Vegas Sayadaw ****. We haven't talked much yet about the 28 kinds of material properties. We'll be discussing them in detail later. For now, though, we should talk a bit about the 2 intimations and the 4 characteristics. These are 6 of the 28 kinds of material properties. Among the 28 kinds of material properties, these 6 are the only ones whose lifespan does not last for 17 thought moments. So, among the 2 kinds of intimation, there is bodily intimation and vocal intimation. Bodily intimation means that it communicates one's ideas to another and the other person understands the intention. For instance, if I want you to come here, I can use bodily intimation to express that, and you will understand what I mean. As for vocal intimation, I use certain words to intimate a concept to you. You understand what I'm talking about. These 2 types of intimation occur because of mind. I want you to come here, right? And so I call you over. I want you to understand something, and so I say something to you. These intimations depend on the mind. Their lifespan is just 1 thought moment, not 17 thought moments. This applies to both bodily and vocal intimation. As for the 4 characteristics, they include production, continuity, decay, and impermanence. Excluding these 6 kinds of material properties, rupa, the remaining 22 kinds of material properties have lifespans of 17 thought moments. 1 thought moment consists of 3 minor instances: genesis, development, and dissolution. As such, 1 thought process consists of 51 minor instances. The first one is production, genesis. The last is dissolution, impermanence. And the intervening 49 thought moments are development, continuity/decay. Now, we know the lifespans of the 28 kinds of material properties. In terms of thought moments, we also know that mind-door thought processes are of two kinds, clear and obscure, and we've seen that jhana mostly arises 7 times, right? We'll learn later on, though, that sometimes it'll arise fewer times than that. It depends on the person and the object. All of you came here to study Abhidhamma, and now you're sitting here listening to me teach it. As you do, what kind of thought process arises? Ear-door thought process. Initially, you may be thinking of something. But then I say something. When I do, past bhavanga arises and ceases. Then 30 analysis of thought processes, vibrating bhavanga, arresting bhavanga, pankadvaravajana, ear consciousness, receiving consciousness, investigating consciousness, and then determining consciousness. What does this mean? Then, jhana. What kind of jhana arises? Since you're listening to me talk about Dhamma, there's nothing to do with sensual objects. Rather, wholesome consciousness arises. Oh, I've never heard this before. As you begin to understand what I'm teaching you, maybe you'll feel happy. This is beautiful consciousness accompanied by somanasa. On the other hand, maybe you're not particularly happy about it, in which case there may be upekkha. When you really understand the meaning of the teaching, this makes sense, then your wholesome consciousness is accompanied by knowledge. And when you understand right away without me having to explain it over and over, your consciousness is unprompted. See, you can know for yourself what kind of consciousness arises. Perhaps somanasa sahagata jnana sampayutta sankharika, right? Or perhaps it was prompted. Or maybe you don't quite understand, and so your consciousness is without knowledge, yet you are still happy to be learning it. Or perhaps you've heard about this particular teaching many, many times, and so you're not so happy. Your consciousness is upekkha. So one of the 8 kinds of wholesome consciousness will arise many, many times in the course of learning about Abhidhamma. When you pay respect to a Buddha statue, in the moment of seeing the statue, I-door thought process will arise. Maybe you were just thinking about your family or your business or whatever, but when you looked at the Buddha statue, the object changed. As the statue appears to your I-door, past bhavanga arises and ceases. Then, vibrating bhavanga, arresting bhavanga, pankadvaravajana, I consciousness, receiving consciousness, investigating consciousness, and then determining consciousness. I need to pay respect to the Buddha statue. Then you do. In the moment of paying respect to the Buddha statue, your jhana is wholesome consciousness. If you feel happy about it, there is somanasa. If you feel indifferent, there is upekkha. If you just saw other people doing it and followed suit without understanding the benefit of paying respect, your consciousness is without knowledge. But if you reflected, oh, this is our great teacher and we should pay respect to him, then your consciousness is with knowledge. If no one coerced you 31 Las Vegas Sayadaw into paying respect, then your consciousness is unprompted. But if someone did, then it is prompted. You understand this, right? When you practice generosity, observe precepts, chant, or sit in meditation, it's the same. Maybe the object is a 5-sense door object. Or perhaps it's a mind door object, right? If it's a 5-sense door object, then there will be a 5-sense door thought process. If it's a mind object, a mind door thought process will arise. Will you have beautiful or ugly thoughts? It will depend on whether you had wise or unwise attention. Your jhana will change accordingly, maybe wholesome or maybe unwholesome. Meditators need to understand something the Buddha said. He said that all conditioned things are impermanent. How are they impermanent? Past bhavanga arises and ceases. Then, subsequently, vibrating bhavanga arises and perishes. Then, arresting bhavanga arises and perishes. Then, apprehending consciousness arises and perishes. After one thought moment arises and perishes, another one follows, right? So our life, although it may seem like a long life, is really just one thought moment. That's all we're alive for. Our life doesn't continue for longer than that. One thought moment arises and disappears, and then another occurs. We're alive for one thought moment before it perishes and is replaced by another. Material properties consist of only genesis, static, and cessation. They just come and go. The mind, of course, is the same way. They are both impermanent. And that's why we say anicca, anicca. When we know this, we practice meditation and can observe our mind arising and disappearing over and over again, billions of times in a single second. It's the same way with bodily sensations, vibrations and whatnot, arising and disappearing over and over. We call this anicca, and its reality. We practice meditation to understand the three characteristics: impermanence, sorrowfulness, and uncontrollability. And when we understand Abhidhamma, it will support our meditation to make these characteristics more clear. As you sit in meditation, you can see your thought processes arising and disappearing over and over again. We see dukkha, suffering, too. We already talked about three kinds of suffering, right? Suffering doesn't only mean being unhappy. Nothing lasts long before it disappears. Experience is constantly changing, and that is suffering. The mind doesn't last long. It just arises, and 32 analysis of thought processes disappears. There is happiness, and then there is sorrowfulness. None of it lasts long, so mind and matter are changing all the time. That is impermanence and sorrowfulness, and we can't control that either. We don't have the ability to make experiences persist. It is their nature to just arise and disappear. They perform their function and then disappear. Bhavanga has its function, right? And Pankadvarava jhana has the function of apprehending. Eye consciousness has the function of seeing. Receiving consciousness has the function of receiving. Investigating consciousness has the function of investigating. And determining consciousness has the function of determining. What about jivana? It fully experiences the object. And what about registering consciousness? Its function is registering, so they each have their function. And that function lasts for just one thought moment. We know their function. What about their vedana, or feeling? What's the feeling of panicadvara vajana? Upekkha, right? Don't forget this. How about receiving consciousness? Upekkha. Investigating consciousness? Upekkha. If it's a very desirable object, though, it's somanassa. What about determining consciousness? Upekkha. How about jivana? Maybe upekkha, maybe somanassa, or perhaps domanassa, right? What about registering consciousness? This is the three santirana and great resultant consciousness, right? So maybe upekkha, or maybe somanassa. That's enough for today, right? Next week we'll be talking about the thought processes that occur when we gain jhana, enlightenment, or fruition. In the meantime, if you have any questions about thought processes, write them down and we'll talk about them next week. We want this to be clear. Except for when we're sleeping, we have thought processes all the time. Maybe five sense door thought processes, or maybe mind door thought processes. When you think, you see, you hear, what kind of thought processes arises? If you have any doubts about any of this, we can discuss it more next week. Not long ago we studied roots, feelings, doors, objects, functions, and bases. Right? We can now begin to see how all these things are tied together. Look at Pankadvarava jhana. What's the root? There's no root. What kind of vedana? Upekkha, or neutral. What kind of function? Apprehending. What's the door? The five sense doors, right? How about 33 Las Vegas Sayadaw, the object? A comma object. And on what bases does it depend? It depends on the five sense bases, eye base, ear base, and so on. We should know this. How many doors does eye consciousness have? Only the eye door. Okay, let's stop here. I'll see you next week. Sadhu. 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 Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Today is April 18th, 1998. Last week, we discussed five sense door thought processes and mind door thought processes. This is regarding sense sphere jivana. I would like you to note that eye door thought process, for example, is not sufficient for a visible object to actually be known. After an eye door thought process is complete, four mind door thought processes follow. After that, the object is actually known. Since we've been using I-door thought process as our example, we'll continue with that. So after the stream of consciousness subsides into bhavanga, a mind-door thought process will arise. This mind-door thought process will take the same object. Let's use a more specific example. You see me right now, right? When you initially see me, an I-door thought process will arise. It will consist of past bhavanga, vibrating bhavanga, arresting bhavanga, panchadvara vajana, chakkuvinyana, sampatichana, santirana, votapana, seven javana. Because your eye sensitivity is very good, there is good light, and my body appears very clearly to you. And then tadaramana will arise twice. The thought process then subsides into bhavanga. Upon completion of this thought process, the object is not known. Next, a mind-door thought process will arise. That mind-door thought process will run through and subside into bhavanga. If you look at my hand, you might not know who I am, right? It's the same if you just look at my fingers. To know who I am, you have to look at the whole of me, and so a second mind-door thought process looks at the whole object. After it runs, it will also subside into bhavanga. The Pali term atapanyati refers to things. Here, you see a thing. My body, my form. We have two types of concepts, right? Atapanyati and namapanyati, which is what you name the things. So the 34 analysis of thought processes, third mind-door thought process, takes the thing as the object as it runs and eventually subsides into bhavanga. With the fourth mind-door thought process, there is namapanyati. Ah, this is Las Vegas Sayadaw. Here, you know that Las Vegas Sayadaw is sitting in front of you. With namapanyati, you see me, and that object is actually known. So, to summarize, after I-door thought process arises, 4 mind-door thought processes follow. Then, the object is actually known. To get there, you have the past thought process, the whole thought process, the thing thought process, and the name thought process. After these 5 thought processes, remember the initial I-door thought process. You know the object clearly. Our mind is very fast, right? We tend to think we know an object right away. But it doesn't actually happen like that. Many consciousnesses arise and disappear before we know the object. The other 5 sense-door thought processes run the same way, though you should be aware of a slight differentiation. Let's look at ear-door thought process. What's the difference between I-door thought process and ear-door thought process? When you see the thing, atapanyati, first and know its name, namapanyati, later. And so, I-door thought process is atapanyati and then namapanyati. But when we hear, namapanyati, we know the name, first and understand the thing, atapanyati, later. So, when you hear me, your ear-door thought process will arise. Then, 4 mind-door thought processes arise. The first is past thought process. The second is whole thought process. The third is name thought process. And with the fourth, you know the meaning, atha, which means both thing or meaning. In summary, I-door thought process is past, whole, thing, and name, and ear-door thought process is past, whole, name, and thing. 35.